The darkness of space holds secrets, secrets buried so deep in time that most have forgotten they even existed. But legends never truly fade. They lie dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken, to remind the galaxy who once ruled the stars. For centuries, humanity was pushed to the edges, dismissed by the great empires as weak and insignificant. Yet beneath that dismissal lies a truth no one dared to face: humanity's legacy is older, stronger, and far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Far beyond the reach of known space, in the cold and empty void where light barely reaches, something stirs. Massive warships, relics from a forgotten age, awaken from a slumber that lasted millennia. Their hulls, etched with ancient symbols, glow faintly with power that defies understanding. Commander Rafe Dane stood silently in the command center of the scout ship Falcon's Shadow, eyes fixed on the holographic displays. Every signal, every piece of data confirmed what he had long suspected. "These aren't just ancient ships," Mara Jex whispered, stepping closer. "They're our past, the lost empire's might. Technology and power that predates even the largest galactic empires." Rafe's gaze hardened. "They thought they had erased us from history. But they were wrong. This is our true strength, buried in the stars, waiting for the right moment." The crew fell silent, the weight of history settling over them like a heavy cloak. "Prepare the fleet," Rafe commanded. "It's time the galaxy remembers who humanity really is." Outside, the dark void seemed to come alive. The warship stirred, engines humming with ancient power, shadows larger than moons drifting silently. The stars blinked uncertainly, as if sensing the storm about to break. Mara's voice was tense. "Commander, the other empires are detecting us. They're mobilizing their fleets." Rafe's eyes burned with fierce determination. "Let them come. They don't know what we are yet, but soon, they will." He turned to his crew. "For centuries, we hid in the dark. Now, we rise. Humanity will no longer be forgotten." The engines roared. Weapons hummed to life. The ancient fleet surged forward, ready to reclaim its place in the galaxy. In that moment, humanity's forgotten legacy was reborn, a force that would shake the stars themselves. But this was only the beginning. In the war room aboard the Falcon's Shadow, the holographic map pulsed with the approaching fleets of rival empires. Red markers representing hostile ships blinked ominously, inching closer every second. Rafe rubbed the bridge of his nose. "They underestimate us. They see relics, not war machines. They see ashes, not fire." Mara leaned forward, eyes scanning the data. "Our sensors picked up energy fluctuations from the core reactors on the old warships. They're unlike anything in current use. This isn't just raw power, it's adaptive, self-regenerating. We can't let them capture these ships." A junior officer piped up nervously, "Commander, comms are lighting up. The coalition fleet is demanding we stand down and surrender." Rafe's jaw tightened. "Tell them humanity doesn't negotiate from the shadows anymore." He paused, looking out into the infinite void beyond the viewport, where stars seemed to pale in the presence of their fleet. "We're not just fighting for survival," he said quietly, "we're fighting for our name. For every forgotten ancestor who dreamed of this day. The galaxy will hear our roar." Elsewhere, deep inside the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dawn, Admiral Varek of the Coalition watched the sensor readings with a furrowed brow. "These human warships, they are waking. This was not supposed to happen," he muttered. His aide responded, "Their technology predates ours by thousands of years, sir. If they harness it fully, the balance of power will shift." Varek slammed his fist on the console. "Then we destroy them before that can happen. Mobilize all squadrons. No mercy." Back on Falcon's shadow, the atmosphere was tense but charged with hope. Rafe gathered his officers. "We're the ghosts of a forgotten empire, but soon, we'll be the thunder that shakes the stars." Mara smirked, "Ready to rewrite history, Commander?" Rafe nodded, a fire burning in his eyes. History isn't written by those who hide. It's written by those who dare. As the fleet surged into the starfield, the first volleys of light and energy began to blaze across the void. Ancient human warships, long thought lost to myth, now roared back to life, unstoppable, unyielding, and ready to remind the galaxy what it truly means to face humanity. The void of space was no longer a silent expanse. The ancient warships, once lost to legend and time, now surged forward like awakened giants. Their hulls, scarred by millennia, shimmered with an eerie blue glow, a sign that dormant power was stirring within them. Engines thrummed, filling the empty darkness with a pulse so strong it felt alive, breathing new life into humanity's forgotten legacy. Commander Rafe Dane stood firm on the bridge of the Falcon's shadow, his sharp eyes locked on the holographic star map projecting a battlefield alive with countless enemy vessels closing in from all sides. The dim red warning lights cast fleeting shadows on his weathered face, but his voice remained steady, a calm in the storm. "Enemy fleets are converging faster than we anticipated. They still believe our ancient warships are rusted relics, forgotten toys to be crushed." Mara Jex, the ship's tactical officer, clenched her fists on the control console, the tension clear in her voice. "Their arrogance will be their downfall. Our weapons systems have evolved in silence. They've never seen what we're truly capable of." Suddenly, a shrill alarm tore through the bridge, snapping the crew to immediate action. "Starboard flank. Multiple enemy contacts detected, close range," shouted the sensor officer, his fingers flying over the controls. Rafe's jaw tightened, the weight of command settling deeper. "Battle stations, all hands. Shields up. Weapons hot. Prepare to engage on my mark." The Falcon's shadow shuddered violently as plasma bolts slammed against its shields, illuminating the bridge in bursts of fiery orange and green. The ancient warships responded with primal ferocity. Massive ion cannons swung into position, unleashing streams of searing energy that tore through enemy hulls like paper. Mara leaned in toward Rafe, her voice dropping to a tense whisper. "Commander, strange energy signatures detected. Enemy ships are trying to overload our power cores with disruptive pulses. If they succeed, it'll cripple us." Rafe's eyes narrowed. "Divert all power to secondary shielding around the reactors. We cannot afford a breach." Across the void, the enemy flagship's communications crackled to life, Admiral Varek's cold, commanding voice booming through the static. "Humans, your time is over. Surrender now or be obliterated. This galaxy will be ours." Rafe's lips curled into a defiant smirk as he replied, voice steady and unwavering. "We don't surrender. We rise." The battle intensified. Explosions blossomed like deadly stars, twisting wreckage spiraling silently through the abyss. The ancient warships demonstrated terrifying adaptability, shields that absorbed and redirected energy, weapon systems that reshaped their firing modes mid-combat to exploit every weakness in the enemy lines. On the bridge, the crew fought not only with weapons but with nerves of steel. Talia Voss, a young and gifted engineer, stood over the main power console, sweat beading on her brow as she rerouted power to failing systems. "Commander, power fluctuations in Sector 7, if this goes any further, we lose propulsion and weapons," she reported breathlessly. Rafe's gaze softened as he looked toward her. "Keep it steady, Talia. We need every watt. We're not done fighting." Outside, the enemy pressed harder, a relentless tide of warships attempting to overwhelm the ancient fleet's defenses. But with every strike absorbed and every enemy vessel destroyed, humanity's old legends seemed to roar louder, awakening something far beyond mere machinery. Deep inside the Falcon's shadow, hidden within the ship's core, an ancient mechanism began to hum with unnatural energy. It pulsed in sync with the warships around it, a power long dormant, a force forgotten by time but now awakened to reclaim its place in the stars. The battle was far from over. But now, the true strength of humanity's forgotten fleet was starting to reveal itself, a power that could turn the tide of this war and shake the foundations of every empire that dared to challenge it. The Falcon's shadow groaned under the relentless assault, its hull trembling as plasma bolts and disruptor waves crashed against its ancient shields. Commander Rafe Dane's eyes never wavered from the tactical display, where a deadly dance unfolded, friend and foe locked in a desperate struggle for survival, each move a gamble on the razor's edge of annihilation. Damage report. Rafe barked, voice cutting through the controlled chaos. Lieutenant Kieran, the communications officer, spun around, voice tight with urgency. We've lost communications with 3 frigates. Boarding drones breached the Ardent Veil and Iron Claw, they're fighting hand-to-hand inside the hull. Mara Jexa's face was set in grim determination. Those boarding drones aren't just disrupting, they're systematically dismantling our fleet from within. If they take control of one of the ancient warships, the entire formation could collapse. Rafe's jaw clenched. Divert all remaining drone countermeasures to the affected ships. If they fall, it's not just ships we lose, it's our history. Talia Vasa's hands flew across the core's emergency controls, sweat slick on her brow as she fought the rising energy surges. Core temperatures rising to critical levels. I'm stabilizing, but we're close to meltdown. If the disruptors hit that core again, it'll be the end. Rafe moved closer to the main console, eyes scanning the swirling chaos. Can we isolate the disruptors' frequency? Cut off their control? Working on it, Mara said, fingers flying as she tapped into enemy signals. They're adaptive, shifting frequencies faster than we can lock on. Whoever engineered this tech is a genius. The bridge grew tense. Outside, the Eclipse sliced through the void like a blade, its sleek black hull reflecting the flashes of distant explosions. It circled the Falcon's shadow with Predator's patience, weapons primed for a kill shot. Rafe's voice was steel. Prepare the ion cannons for focused fire. When I give the order, we take out the Eclipse, 1 shot, 1 kill. The crew held their breath as the destroyer lunged forward, plasma burst streaking toward the ancient flagship. Shields flared, absorbing the blows, but the impact sent tremors throughout the ship. Suddenly, the Falcon's shadow shuddered violently. A violent explosion rocked the secondary hull, the disruptors had penetrated the defenses. Hull breach on Deck 7, shouted the damage control officer, his face pale. Fire in the engineering bay. Evacuate immediately. Rafe's voice dropped, resolute yet heavy with command. Mara, seal off the engineering bay. Talia, reroute power around that sector, we cannot lose propulsion. Mara's eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and resolve. Understood, Commander. But this fight is tearing us apart. Rafe met her gaze. We're the last hope for a legacy that was buried for centuries. Failure is not an option. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit corridors of the Falcon's shadow, firefights erupted as boarding drones swarmed like locusts. Soldiers and crew fought desperately, their weapons blazing, each step forward a battle against the relentless invaders. In one narrow hallway, Lieutenant Kayla Rhine ducked behind a bulkhead, breathing hard. Cover me, she shouted as she lobbed an EMP grenade into a swarm of drones, frying circuits in a sizzling burst. Her partner, Corporal Jax, kept the doorway guarded, eyes sharp. We can't hold this corridor forever. We need to push back to the main reactor. Then let's move. Kayla growled, determination blazing. If they take that core, this ship's done for. Back on the bridge, Rafe stared at the energy readings, his mind racing. The ancient power pulsing beneath the ship was awakening, but was it enough? Could it counteract the enemy's cutting-edge technology and sheer numbers? Suddenly, the ship's AI chimed in with a calm yet eerie voice. "Commander, core resonance levels reaching critical mass. A powerful energy discharge is imminent." Rafe's heart pounded. Is it safe to trigger? Unknown. But it may be our last chance. Mara's eyes widened. If we release that energy, it could disable our weapons temporarily, but it might wipe out the disruptors and drones in range. Rafe nodded, decision made. Do it. Brace for feedback. The ship trembled as a brilliant pulse of ancient energy surged outward, cutting through the void like a shockwave. Enemy drones exploded mid-air, disruptors faltered, and the tide of boarding attacks slowed. But the cost was high. The Falcon's shadow went dark for a tense moment, systems rebooting amid flickering lights and alarms. When power returned, the bridge crew cheered softly. They had survived. But the battle was far from over. Rafe's voice was a vow, deep and unwavering. This fight will test us beyond limits. But humanity's ancient legacy will not be extinguished today. The conflict raged on, not just a war of ships, but a battle for hope, for survival, and for the soul of a people reborn from the ashes of forgotten history. The Falcon's shadow trembled violently, its ancient hull groaning beneath the relentless onslaught. The enemy flagship, the Eclipse, loomed ahead like a dark storm cloud ready to break. In the heart of the bridge, Commander Rafe Dane's jaw tightened as he watched enemy fighters swarming toward their weakened flanks. Shields holding at 32%, but falling fast, Mara reported, eyes glued to the tactical display. Their reinforcements keep coming, and we're bleeding power. If this keeps up, the whole fleet will be lost. Rafe's gaze flicked to Talia, who was frantically manipulating the core's cooling systems. How long can you hold the reactor, Talia? She swallowed hard, her fingers flying over controls. We're at critical thresholds. One more hit, one more breach, and the core will go into meltdown. I need another 5 minutes to initiate full shutdown, but we won't get that time if boarding parties breach the inner hull. A voice crackled over the comm from Lieutenant Kayla Rhine. Commander, Sentinels are deployed in the engineering sectors. They're holding the enemy at bay, but the boarding drones have found another way inside, the main reactor access tunnels. They're pushing through fast. Damn it, Rafe cursed under his breath. If they take the core, the ship is lost. He took a deep breath and turned to Mara. Divert all remaining energy to the point defense cannons and prepare the plasma torpedoes. This ends now. Target the flagship's bridge, their command must fall. Mara nodded grimly, fingers flying. Aye, Commander. Down in the dim, flickering corridors of the Falcon's shadow, Kayla's strike team raced toward the reactor, the ancient sentinels blazing a trail through the enemy ranks with bursts of plasma and arc lightning. But the boarding parties were relentless, driven by desperation, or perhaps fanaticism. Explosions rocked the corridor. Kayla shouted over the din, keep moving. Don't let them isolate the core. Suddenly, the walls erupted with gunfire, and an explosion knocked Kayla to the ground. Dazed, she looked up just as a swarm of enemy drones descended on her position. Kayla, a voice called, Sergeant Aaron, firing back-to-back with her. Together, they fought through the chaos, pushing deeper into the ship's heart. But every step forward cost lives. Back on the bridge, tension reached a fever pitch as the enemy flagship opened fire. Massive plasma beams lanced through the void, ripping into the Falcon's shadow's shields and hull. Brace for impact. Rafe shouted, gripping the console. The ship shuddered violently, lights flickering. The core alarm blared, a brutal warning that time was running out. Plasma torpedoes locked and ready. Mara announced. Fire! Rafe ordered. 2 massive torpedoes launched, streaking through space with lethal precision. They slammed into the Eclipse's bridge, explosions blossoming in deadly cascades. For a moment, silence fell, the calm before the storm. Then the flagship's bridge shattered, a great explosion ripping through their command center. Enemy flagship is crippled. Mara called, eyes wide with disbelief. Push the attack. Rafe yelled, feeling the surge of hope. In the reactor chamber, Kayla's team fought tooth and nail. The drones had breached the core's protective shield, and every second was a battle against oblivion. Activate the emergency shutdown. Kayla commanded. Talia's voice crackled in her ear, trembling with urgency. I'm running the protocols now, hold them off just a little longer. Explosions erupted nearby, but the strike team held firm. With a final pulse of energy, the core began to shut down, the dangerous glow dimming slowly. We did it, Kayla breathed, barely believing it. Back on the bridge, the battle was nearing its climax. The Sentinels had cleared the boarding parties, and the Falcon's shadow was fighting with every ounce of ancient power still left in its bones. Rafe's voice was resolute, commanding, and calm amidst chaos. We survived this day, but the galaxy will never be the same. Humanity's ancient legacy is waking. And we will fight, no matter the odds. The enemy fleet, seeing their flagship destroyed and boarding parties repelled, began to retreat. As silence settled over the battered battlefield, the crew of the Falcon's shadow exhaled collectively. Mara leaned over the console, exhaustion etched on her face. We're damaged, but alive. This ship, this crew, we're not done yet. Rafe stood, looking out at the stars beyond the shattered viewport. This victory is only the beginning. The legends of humanity's ancient warships will echo through the cosmos, and our enemies will remember why they should never underestimate us. Talia joined him, wiping sweat from her brow. For the first time in millennia, the past has given us a future. Rafe nodded. And that future belongs to us, to humanity. The stars outside the Falcon's shadow seemed to hold their breath, silent witnesses to a battle that would be remembered for generations. The ancient warship, battered and scarred, drifted through the void, a living monument to human endurance and unyielding spirit. Commander Rafe Dane stood on the bridge, the weight of victory heavy on his shoulders. Around him, the crew moved with a quiet determination, repairing, recalibrating, preparing for whatever the future might bring. The war was not over, far from it. But today, humanity had proven that their legacy was more than just myth. Mara approached, her eyes reflecting both relief and fierce pride. We survived the impossible, Rafe. Against all odds, we fought back an empire that thought us forgotten. Rafe nodded slowly. The galaxy thought humanity was lost in the shadows of time. But now, they know the truth. Our ancestors built these ships to endure, to protect. And so shall we. Below decks, Kayla Rhine tended to wounded soldiers, their faces pale but alive. The spirit of defiance burned bright in every glance, every whispered vow. We didn't just win a battle, Kayla said quietly to Aaron, who stood guard nearby. We reignited a flame, one that will never be extinguished. In the communications room, Talia monitored the distant signals, picking up scattered transmissions from Allied fleets and distant colonies. The message is spreading, she said with a smile. The legend of the ancient warships is inspiring others to rise. Humanity is uniting again. Rafe turned back to the stars, thoughts racing. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and mysteries. But with the awakening of their ancient strength, humanity was ready to face it all, no longer shadows, but warriors of the light. As the Falcon's shadow powered up its engines, preparing to lead the charge into the unknown, Rafe spoke softly, as if to himself and the countless generations who had come before. We are the heirs of a forgotten legacy. The guardians of hope. And the future is ours to claim. The ship surged forward, a blazing comet in the endless night, carrying with it the unbreakable spirit of humanity, unstoppable, unyielding, and forever ready to fight for their place among the stars.